Alright, so it's been a while since I started this, but I stopped recording in the first part and finished the install without recording and logging it. Ran into a few troubles that it's unrelated to a new setup. It was due to my old test. So you've installed all your software, and now you're trying to get rid of this micro instance that you have. I don't have one here anymore, but so you'd have one line item here. It would be a micro instance. Now you need to, everything's installed, everything's good. You probably I wouldn't recommend testing the Dropbox sync and rendering and all that on the micro, but so now you're ready to go on to the next step and convert this micro into a C3X large. So what you would do is go to your volumes. You would have one volume here. You would right click it, you would go to snapshots, and you would go to the snapshot. If you don't have one, you go to volumes, look at the volume that you're using, and say create snapshot. But if you do have snapshot, just right click that and say create image. And what that's going to do is make an AMI. So, and an AMI is something that's going to be like an OS install disk, or whatever. So that's if you accidentally destroy or terminate your instance, everything will be rolled back to this AMI state. So this AMI state is now your base, everything. So make your AMI and make sure that it has the same 100 gigs and its Windows, and select and there and all that. So and then in instances, you go to launch instance and you choose my AMIs, and then you choose your AMI that you just created. Go through this process, select the same. You've done all this before, but this time just choose this compute optimized C3 8X large, or something better if there's a better offering at the time that you're watching this. And be sure once again to not hit review and launch, to hit next and go through the steps. And yeah, so I would recommend just creating one for the time being. You can say, hey, I want to make 5 of these things, but I would just do one to start, and then use that for testing. Make sure that it works. Test it with deadline. Make sure that it's syncing to Dropbox, everything's mapped right, and yada yada yada. Get that in tip-top shape, and then you can right-click that instance and say launch more like this, and then from here, you choose how many and yada yada yada, and then you're just making clones. So however many you want to keep on hand at any given moment. Remember, you are going to be billed monthly just for the storage of these things. Launch that many, and then you're going to have to connect to each one once they're on, and in each one you need to rename the computer and then restart it. Reason being is that deadline requires that each computer has a different ID. If you clone machines like this, or you go to AMI and you're just running off this AMI, they're all gonna have the same computer name, and you need to change that. Otherwise, deadline will just say, give an error saying that a machine with that ID is already connected, and it won't show up as a render node. So that's also the reason why you can't terminate these instances, which would be nice if you could launch from an AMI. But anyway, yeah. So you just want to keep however many that you're usually gonna, a good number that's affordable for you, and still enough horsepower. When you really need the horsepower, you can always clone more, and then log into each one if it's a huge job, and rename the IDs, and then you're off to the races. So yeah, that's and then you're that once everything's tested and working and good, then go ahead and delete that micro instance that's up here. Just go up here and terminate. That's like the only time you would want to terminate. So you'll also see that once you have all of them going, you now have this, as many volumes as you have instances. So that's it, and yeah. Let's start by taking a look at what the end result will get you. It's the so this is Deadline, the Deadline application. I have the Windows set up in a particular way that works for me. How this works is basically we see my Amazon machines here, my jobs here, and this will show the machines and when they're turned on and what their status is and what they're doing, what they're up to. Down here is just a bunch of errors. There's a lot of project not founds, which I'll explain in a little bit, but we can go to job output. Job output, just to keep this clean. Delete job reports, delete all error reports. Okay, so and Deadline's nice because it's you can have different pools. If you're in a large company, you can set priorities of different jobs. You can just kind of really manage a larger operation. Even if you're not in a large operation, it brings back all the goodies of old school NetRender. I don't know what R16 is going to bring us with the NetRender Team Render server, but pretty much it's all the goodies plus more. So you can really control a lot of your stuff here. Not to mention that you have support for all kinds of applications to your rendering. So I am rendering currently this shot. Okay, so I just have this plate of food, GI and what have you. So and the shot is going to be 24 frames long on my machine, which is a fairly decent machine. It's 3930K. I don't know why it's showing 3.2 because it is overclocked. And for me to render this frame took 7 minutes and 45 seconds. Now, if we look at old jobs, if we can kind of do this, if we look at an old job, it's just an old version. I made a small tweak to the project here, but took 146 seconds, so it's much faster than my machine. 32 cores running at I don't know, it was like 3 something, and so these machines, the Cinebench on them is I think it was 2,200 each. So between all 5 of my machines, I get about 12,000 Cinebench scores. To kick this project off, I'm going to start my instances. So I'm going to go to start instances. Yes. Okay. So while it's doing that, just to show you how this works. And that was the change. I put a little new Apple beep. So okay, so I need to go to plugins, submit the deadline. Now this is essentially doing a collect, a save project with assets, and the only exception is that it's gonna talk to Deadline's repository. After you install Deadline, you'll know better what that is, but it's basically a big muck of files, and just pull it up. So this is the repository. You never need to go into here once it's set up. During the install process, it'll just build this. Now I'm putting this in the Dropbox, and that's important for getting this to work for Amazon, and just getting everything to talk to each other. There might be better solutions, but this is what I have going now. It works pretty well. The only drawback is that if you're a heavy user of Dropbox and someone invites you to a new folder, even though you have selective sync on, it'll still automatically add that across all machines. So all your render farm machines will get that new file until you go in and remove it. So I am looking into using like a Google Drive or some other service that's dedicated to this, so I don't have that issue. Otherwise, those Amazon machines might get a little the memory will be eaten up by other Dropbox items. So and there's, you have to map it a particular way, but we'll get to that in a minute. So we're going to do this save with assets, but it's not save with assets. It's plugins submit to deadline, which we will do basically the same thing. Just give it a name. Usually it's going to be the same name that you have in the project. You don't need, I don't think I changed anything, but if you had set up pools and groups, departments, company departments, this is where it would be. And make sure that your frame count is right, and frames per task 1. Now frames per task, that's if maybe you have really fast renders and you want each machine to render 5 frames at a time, so groups of 5. So it says machine 1 render frames 1 through 5, machine 2 6 to 10, things like that. I'm just going to go ahead and hit submit, and I have everything going to this. I have it mapped to a unique drive letter, and I'll explain that in a bit, but we'll just kind of call this plate 20. Alright, so it says result success, so enjoy. Now it'll just sync to Dropbox. While we're waiting for that, I'm waiting for Dropbox to upload my project. It says 7 minutes left. So while we have that 7 minutes, looks like all my Amazon instances stopped. Yeah. So I have this alarm when and I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but on your final machines, your C4D 8X large, or whatever instance type you ended up going with, I created an alarm. It's probably a good idea too, just so you don't get overbilled. But basically it just says, I have it on each instance, and it just says if the CPU utilization is less than 10% for 15 minutes, tell the instance to stop. Now I won't even boot them up until Dropbox is fully synced. It says 3 minutes left. 15 minutes is a little on the short side. You might want to let it go for 30, just for syncing and things of that nature. So, but stepping back a bit, in order to use Net License Server, you need to have a machine that's always on, never turns down, never shuts down. So I personally use one of these little things. They're called Net Tops. You can get them on eBay. I got mine on eBay for like $80. So and it's just a little machine. I don't have a monitor or anything connected to it. It's just on. Well, I did when I set it up, of course, but it's just a little guy that sits in the server room, and yeah, it runs Windows XP, and it just has the all my floating license server software is on here, and it's hooked up to the network, which then goes to our workstations. And so yeah, you could pick one of these up, or you could maybe even use one of the Amazon micro instances, but you're going to need a static IP. So this is an office. So I have a business internet account, so I have a static IP, and that way I can set it within the Amazon instances and those machines, and it never changes. I never need to log back in here and say, oh, today my IP is this, because at a residential address, or a typical internet address, it could change depending on your provider. It could change a couple times a day. It could change a couple times a year. If you use an Amazon micro instance to do that, and just always leave it on, you will incur a monthly fee, a minimal one, but you'll incur a monthly fee, not only for the storage of that OS and having it on and running, but also for the static IP, because they're called elastic IPs here, but you would in the Amazon world, but basically you buy a static IP address, and then you assign it to a machine. So you could do that, but just getting one of these guys will save you money in just a couple months, if not less. So moving forward, looks like my Dropbox is all synced, so I'll bring up Deadline again. So it's here, ready to go. This plate 20. That's why we use the submit to deadline in here. You go to plugins, submit to deadline, which is essentially the same thing. I already said this, but save projects with assets. The only difference is that it talks to this. It talks to the deadline repository, and that's the repositories in Dropbox, so all machines see it. Normally you have the repository on a local network, NAS drive or something that all your machines see, but since we're talking over the internet to other machines, we need to use a service like Dropbox. There's also, we could use an Amazon service like Amazon S3, and then somehow map that directory, or map that bucket, as they're called, to a drive letter. But S3, it charges, again, minimal charges, but they do charge for storage used, for data coming in and out, and we're talking pennies, but it adds up. So I just use Dropbox. It's fine as long as you get to know how it functions, in the deadline world. So now that we're ready to render, it says plate 20, it's ready to render. I'm going to go ahead and launch these. So start instances, and I have a fast connection here and everything, but the Amazon data center has a way faster connection. So once these boot up, it's going to sync this in no time, and it also uploads to Dropbox for me to download in no time. So the biggest sync issue is when you have a project, you're ready to submit it, you go to submit, and then you're waiting for your internet connection, whatever it is, to upload that entire project directory. So now you can see that they're running. You could also start them from here if you want, but yeah, now they're all rendering. You can see that they're going for over a minute each, so that's a good sign. It's not just erroring out. So let's just delete all these job error reports so we don't get confused, and any non-sync related errors will show up here. But as it renders, you're just going to get results back in the Dropbox. Now, let me use this time while we're waiting to kind of go over how we have this working. So in my Dropbox, I have the two folders: Deadline Repo and C4D render jobs. So Deadline Repo you're not going to ever touch. It's just for this software to kind of communicate to other instances of the software that you own. And then C4D render jobs, you can name it whatever you want, but I just made this, and this is kind of where my projects live. It's kind of like if you use a render farm, this is your FTP account. It's one way to view it. So now to have this work properly, you need to, because in every instance of Cinema 4D, your output needs to be identical. I guess you could just put it as a local path. Let's just bring it up so you know what I'm talking about. So I suppose you could have, you know, you just say my render.png or whatever. Okay. So you could do that, and then it would just put it in right here in the root of that particular project. But it would go right here, and it's a little messy. So I actually have this results folder. So in order for this to work across all of them, all instances, you need to make sure that the file structure is the same, you know, pointing to this path. So T is, I have mine set to T because it was available, and then that brings us right to what is actually the same thing as this render jobs. So if I look at that and then go to T, it's the same thing. Now, you know, in order to get that to work, we need this little registry edit script, if you will. I don't know what it's actually called, but it's a registry edit. So if we take a look at that, it might be good to pause on this to see what, so you can copy it. But copy it verbatim. The only thing that would change is the drive letter. You would need to change it to whatever your selected drive letter would be, and then the path that the Dropbox for that particular machine resides in. So for example, my primary workstation at the office lives on an internal RAID, so I have it as R, but the Amazon machines are on the C drive because it only has one drive. So these double slashes are, you know, instead of one slash, it's actually two, and then question mark just means, you know, root, or machine level. So you need this backslash question mark backslash, then your map name with two slashes for every slash that you would see in a normal deal. So yeah, and and the name of the folder, whatever you choose to call it. So if you call it my renders, it would be that. So you're going to need to make this. It can be called anything you want. .reg. You have to give it the extension .reg. If you're on a Mac, I don't know what. I can't help you, but yeah. I just you need to make one for each machine that you're going to do this on. All your Amazon machines will have a custom one. Well, they're similar enough. You could probably get away with using the same deal. So there's that, and that will what this does is that you know, if you do that and then run it, it'll just do its thing. You have to restart the machine in order for this to take effect. So once you have it in order, save it to your desktop or wherever. We have one for our primary workstations here, and we also have one here on the render farm. So if we take a look at the Amazon one, Amazon side one, we would say basically, just to read through it, T drive. Let's make a T drive so it shows up, you know, in here. And then it will be, root of the machine, and then the location of our Dropbox folder, which is, and you can get that just by going to your Dropbox, clicking up here, copy that, go down, paste, and then adhere it to this format. So it would be another slash there, another slash there, another slash there, and then this little bit, and then you're good to go. Save, run it, double click it, and then restart your Amazon instance. And from that point forward, your T drive, or whatever you opted to call it, will now be that particular Dropbox folder. So now, from that point forward, you would just need to, in your Cinema folder, you would just need to just say T drive, or since you're mapped everywhere, just go to T drive and sorry. You just need to go to T drive results, my project, blah. So that would just be your location, and you would be good to go. So do that, and then do your submit to deadline deal. All right, so we have these machines going for. You can see the running time. I had a little bit of a hiccup, so this isn't really accurate. They've been running about twice as long, but I'm taking this one's so it maxed out at 3.2 minutes to finish out that frame. So they're taking 3.2 minutes each, and currently at 64%, and it was taking almost 8 minutes a frame on my local machine. So it's doing pretty good. It's only been really rendering for the past 5-10 minutes, so it's doing pretty well. Another thing is that Amazon requires when you launch an instance, it shows you the OS login screen, and there appears to be no way around that. Like if you just want to turn on the machine and boot right to desktop, so all the applications that you say turn on when Windows start launch. So that's a big problem, because if we launch our instances, nothing will happen. The machines are on, but Deadline Slave hasn't started yet because you haven't even gotten to the desktop, because it's asking you to remote in and enter in your login credentials. So Deadline, actually, it's not in their documentation or anything, but if you do a Google search, Deadline forums or somewhere odd, they posted a solution for this. So if we go to the login, I changed the password here just to be safe, since I'm putting this on the internets. But we have the you would just enter in whatever password you changed. When you changed your machine password, and you type that in. So it would be your password 123. Hopefully you have a better password than that, but save it. Everything else you don't need to change, just leave it as is. Again, save, close it, and then double click to run. It'll ask you, that little administrator privilege, permission window will pop up. You hit yes. So you probably want to do both of these, 1, 2, and then hit yes. On the other one, hit yes, and then restart your Amazon machine. And the Amazon machine should boot right up and start Deadline. So there you go. Alright, it looks like my render finished and everything's good. It's still syncing the file. No, it's done uploading. So because I have that alarm on, it's about to turn off. So before it does that, let's just go ahead and run a Cinebench just to see what we're dealing with. Yeah, so 2073 Cinebench points or something, which is really good. Yeah, it's I'm happy. So yeah, I think this stuff is going to be the auto login and mapping the T drive, or the weird little hurdles to get this to work. And you can map it not just to, you can map it to your Google Drive or whatever you choose to use. And maybe our 16 server has Team Render server has, it's not even out yet at the time of making this, so I don't know how it's going to work. But maybe you can get this method to work with that without investing in Deadline, which would be great. That would be hugely beneficial. I've been doing this for a while, so I like that Deadline. I'm going to stick with it. But I hope for everyone out there that it works. Another program that you might want to look into, you shouldn't really need this, but start on crash. Looks like I've already been here. But restart on crash is a great little application you can put on your render farm machines. Load it up, say start with Windows, and then just tell it, point it to your slave application, so that if Deadline slave crashes for any reason whatsoever, it's never happened to me on an Amazon instance, but it has happened to me on workstations and things. But restart on crash will just stay running in the background. It will say, hey, it looks like Deadline slave is not here, so I'm gonna just go ahead and launch it again, and that's all it does. And so that way you don't have to, you don't have a machine running but doing nothing, and you're paying for it, or it's just a good little thing to have. So yeah, I'm gonna get out of this now. Trying to think of what else. What I feel like I covered everything. So let's see here. So I might make changes to this video. I might put little, those annoying little bubbles with more info to correct or amend myself. But other than that, I think you're good to go. There's still there's a lot of things you're gonna have to figure out yourself in terms of port forwarding. If you have the net render or the port forwarding, if you have the licensed server on a little net top like I do, and you have it at your office, dedicated IP and everything, but you would still need to do some port forwarding through all the routers and switches that you have in your network, and there's no point in me going over that because everyone's network is different. So but there's plenty of information online to look into that if you're doing this. So it's pretty simple. You'll have no problem. So that's pretty much it. I guess the only thing I could do now is share about how much this stuff costs. So let's see. This is all in the past week or month or whatever. So I've been rendering kind of like a madman this in the past week, and it's always weird. It's always I do this shot, and and then I get the comment. You saw the thing, and I get the comment. You know, can the apples be arranged differently on the ham, or can the fries be, you know, whatever. So we want 4 pieces of broccoli instead of 3. You know, so small little changes. So I'm just each time I have to re-render, and each one it looks like yeah, it looks like you know, it's taken 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 18. You know, I just have little spurts here. This was a different project, so that was 3 hours. And yeah, I just have this is local, so you can ignore that number. But all in all, I think there's no way of showing total, but let's just say 1, 2, 5.5, 6, 7. So about 7.5 hours. 7.5 hours of rendering. That was very horrible math I just did, but go up here. Billing cost management. Cost $269.26. So I was doing the math, and it was about just under $20 every time I had to re-render this shot, and you know, it adds up, and it might sound like a cost, but you know, if I had to wait you know, 12 hours in order to show the next iteration of the shot, it would never get done. It would never deliver, and you know, I don't want to drop $40,000 on local rendering hardware that is going to be outdated next year. So so this is an excellent solution for me. So again, happy rendering and good day.